Good morning, everyone. It's March Madness Monday on March 16th, 2026 here from the Press Box on the Right Team Podcast. As always, I am David Weaver, host of the Right Team Podcast. I'm joined again by my co-host, my friend, the pastor of Friendship Baptist Church and the sports director of KMHT 103.9 FM. He has to have a big head to wear all those hats. My good friend, Brother Matt Paul, who is back in God's country, the great state of Texas, after spending a few days with parents up in Arkansas. How'd your weekend go, Matt?
Man, it was good. Really good weekend. How about the Razorbacks winning the SEC tournament? That was pretty exciting.
I'm disappointed if you didn't lead with that this morning.
Yeah, it was. But good to visit family. Good time with parents. Some of us got to break away and go up and see our son up in Fayetteville. In fact, they got to go see a heck of a baseball game between Arkansas and Mississippi State. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's good to be back, get back in the swing. There's obviously a lot in the sports world going on. There's this little thing called Easter coming up in a couple weeks that has us all busy around here too. So yeah.
Yeah, and full confession here, I do love going to the state of Arkansas, even though my Texas roots run deep. We may have discussed this before, the rivalry part of Texas, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, there's different levels to that, at least from the side of Texas, right? So at least, well, let me break that down a little more, at least from my side of Texas.
Yeah.
I love going to Arkansas, man. I've got something good going on up there. Beautiful place.
It is.
Well, as you mentioned, there was a wild weekend of sports action all over the place. And I tried to go back and just kind of see exactly what took on. There was baseball, there was basketball, there was NFL free agency going on. There was golf, actually, racing, big race going on around Jerry World in Arlington this weekend. We had some hockey, some stuff I watched. Kind of getting into hockey a little bit, Matt. I don't really know where that's going to lead me, but I've kind of got the itch a little bit. But man, there's just everything is converging right now here in the spring, and with baseball opening day coming up here in just a couple of weeks, not to mention, of course, the big thing we're going to talk about here on campus. Of course, the NCAA men's tournament bracket was released yesterday. Before we get into that, Matt's going to break all of that down, and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a comparison to see how my buddy was in terms of his bracketology predictions going into the tournament. I'm going to tell you, you're going to be impressed. I was impressed when I broke it down, and we're going to let him explain his methodology and just exactly how he did get so close to that. But today's on-campus segment is presented by East Texas Baptist University, located in Marshall, Texas. ETBU offers a university experience built on academic excellence, nationally known athletics, and a strong foundation of faith and community. It's a place where students are challenged every day to grow, lead, and serve. Learn more about Life on the Hill in Marshall at etbu.edu. Okay, Matt, the tournament brackets, both the men and the women, were released. We're going to hold off on kind of giving our thought on the women's bracket until tomorrow's show. We just couldn't get it all in today because I do want to focus on the men's side here. There were some, and you kind of mentioned before we started recording, this was one of those years where it really wasn't that difficult to pick who the 68 were. They were pretty well defined for the most part. I know you got some regional arguments from some folks who are upset, but for the most part, overall, this thing kind of went down the way we all thought it would, right?
Yeah, the 68, like if you look at who the first four out were, Oklahoma, Auburn, San Diego State, and I think Indiana. If you look at the metrics of it all, you were really reaching if you thought one of those teams was going to be in over one of the others. I think probably the most likely team to maybe not make it that made it was SMU. They were last on mine. You could maybe make a case for someone like Oklahoma, or Auburn or San Diego State to maybe make it over SMU. But it didn't seem very likely, and so I felt like the 68 were pretty obvious, and it turned out to be that way.
You did have a couple of potential upsets as the conference tournaments played out, but the thing that I took most from when the bracket was released yesterday was the fact that the regular season does indeed matter.
Yeah,
and you really, unless you are just on the extreme bubble, it's very difficult to play yourself out of what you did in the regular season in a conference tournament. You know, the top seeds turned out the way we thought they would. A couple of them didn't win their conference tournament, and but again, their fate had already been sealed for the most part, as we will see when we break these things down. So let's get right down into it here, and I want to just run right down the bracket and just kind of get your thoughts. And I'm going to break these down, of course, by regions. We're going to start in the East, and of course, no big surprise here. You had Duke and Siena, number 1 against number 16, and they'll be playing the winner of Ohio State, which was the 8th seed, and number 9 TCU in the round of 32 over the weekend. Give me your thoughts on those couple of games and how you think. I will say this: if you look at this bracket, Duke may have gotten the toughest draw, even though they are the top seed, just from the fact that, I mean, they're in a bracket with a Rick Pitino coach team, a Bill Self coach team, Tom Izzo at Michigan State, Dan Hurley at UConn. You know, Mick Cronin out at UCLA is a great coach. I mean, this was a Hall of Fame potential level of coaching that is going to be in the East Regional, and that's what your top seed has to face on their road to the Final Four.
Yeah, really was. It's something. I mean, was kind of glad Arkansas didn't get thrown into this one, to be honest with you, although John Calipari would have been a whole nother addition to that list. This region as a whole is stout. Duke is obviously the favorite. I will tell you, it feels like in this region, there are some teams that are getting hot at the right time. Ohio State, if you remember when we first started Bracketology, they were like on my next 4 out. They're an 8 seed now. Bruce Thornton, a senior who's been there several years, has really got Ohio State rolling. They're a dangerous 8 seed when you got a guard like that. St. John's is red hot. Rick Pitino, you know, he's chomping at the bit after bowing out as a 2 seed last year in the second round. He lost to John Calipari in Arkansas. So they're a dangerous 5 seed. Of course, Kansas, very enigmatic with Darren Peterson, but that's one of the best players in the country. You're always scared there. The 6-11 game, Louisville, South Florida. South Florida is an uber athletic team. They are red hot. They're not someone I'd want to face. You've got Izzo down there, and his pedigree speaks for itself. UCLA with Mick Cronin, you mentioned them. That's one of the hottest teams right now. In a tough Big Ten. A lot of people don't know this. If you count the conference tournament, they won 15 games in the Big Ten this year, and they're a 7 seed. And then of course UConn with Dan Hurley's won 2 of the last 3 national titles. This is a wildly competitive bracket. Duke, the obvious favorite, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you were to go down even to a 6 or 7 seed and tell me they came out of this one, I'm not going to be shocked. This bracket, you're right, it is stacked. Even the 12 seed Northern Iowa, that is a team with some historical tourney success. I could see a lot of interesting developments, a lot of madness from this bracket.
Yeah, that second round matchup between UConn and UCLA is a sneaky upset pick.
Yeah. And that's if UCLA can get by Central Florida, a team that really kind of came out of nowhere this year. So, yeah, that is that is one I'll be looking at for sure.
And we'll talk about this more when we talk about Florida, but this was a weekend of crazies for coaches, and you know, I mean, I come from a line of, you know, a coach does nothing to provide bulletin board material, but man, some of the stuff that came out of the SEC in particular, and of course, you know, Hurley is famous for this kind of stuff. But anyway, let's just say UCLA will be a fan favorite most likely, and whoever plays UConn and maybe Florida from this point on. I mean, it's just those coaches kind of put themselves in the limelight.
They do. And how about this? Just something that immediately stands out to me right here. How about the potential in the Elite Eight for a fourth matchup between Connecticut and St. John's in the Elite Eight? That is curious to me. You know, and I'll say this up front, this is not just about this region, but the whole bracket. You know, last year we had all 4 number ones make it. The 4 ones are very stout again this year, but there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of talent, even getting down into the 5 and 6 seeds. I'm going to be really shocked if the 4 ones make it this year.
I could see that. I agree with that. Let's move down to the South region. Of course, we mentioned Florida. They are facing a to-be-determined opponent, which will come from the first 4 matchup being played on Wednesday night between 16 seeds, vying for that 16 seed, Lehigh and Prairie View. And then, of course, Florida coming off of a semifinal loss in the SEC tournament over the weekend. A little bit of a surprise, but then when you really look and see that was a home game for Vanderbilt, you're not really that surprised. Vanderbilt's a pretty good basketball team. I did think it was kind of interesting that if these teams continue to win, they'll see each other again in the Elite or the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that was crazy, isn't it? I mean, gosh, Vanderbilt just wiped the floor with Florida, and now they could meet in the third round. That's kind of crazy.
I'll tell you that game gives me pause. You know, I was all on Florida's bandwagon. You know, and you know, Todd Golden just went went crazy a little bit, for lack of a better term, with his comments after Kentucky. He tried to become Dan Hurley in the SEC, and it didn't go very well. And so, you know, typically when that happens, man, I mean, you see what happened in the semifinals. That can be humbling pretty quick. But as far as it goes into the bracket, and you give me your opinion on this, man, if they do get, let's just say the seedings hold out and they do play Houston in the Elite Eight, or the Elite Eight, I mean, that's a home game for Houston. Houston won't have to leave their dorm rooms.
Yeah.
And
it's funny. And you know,
in seating and placement by the committee.
When I was predicting this bracket, I had to look it up because, you know, you're not allowed to play at a site where your school is the host. And that's what a lot of people don't know. Every one of these locations, a school is the quote unquote host. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, can Houston even be in the South region? Rice is the host, not Houston. So yes, they can. It's kind of quirky, kind of funny how that works out. But this region, you look at Houston, a very, very dangerous team. Illinois kind of tailed off a little bit towards the back end. Illinois is a very dangerous. They are maybe them and Arkansas and Alabama, maybe the most elite offensive teams in this tournament. It's curious that Illinois is playing Penn. I don't know if you saw what happened in the Ivy League yesterday. Penn upset Yale. Kid named TJ Power. What a name, right? TJ Powers has 44 points and 12 rebounds to lead Penn to the victory. Penn is coached by Fran McCaffrey, who until recently was the head coach of Iowa, who has plenty of experience playing Illinois. So an interesting matchup there. But I'll tell you, this is one of those. Florida, Houston, Illinois, that Nebraska Vanderbilt, there are a lot of really, really good teams that could come out of this. You know, even the 8-9 matchup, Clemson and Iowa. Iowa's got a guy that can take over a game in Bennett Sturts. You know, they could be scary in that 8-9. This to me is one. I mentioned that 3-14 with Illinois Penn. Nebraska Troy is maybe the most interesting 4-13 game to me. I could see Troy really kind of maybe wreaking a little havoc athletically with Nebraska. That'll be curious to see how that one goes. But this is a fun little bracket. Of course, you know, you got the Aggies there, a potential for a second round old Southwest Conference matchup with Houston and Texas A&M if the Aggies can get by St. Mary's. So it's it's a curious bracket. There are some teams. This is a bracket. I think Florida's a Final Four team. I think Houston's a Final Four caliber team. I think Illinois is a Final Four caliber team. They're all right there.
Yeah, that Sweet 16 matchup potentially, Houston and Illinois will be interesting to watch. And I'm watching North Carolina, not necessarily because I think they're a top team by any means, but they are North Carolina, and this is traditionally their time of year. And they either you traditionally or at least recently go either one of two ways. I mean, they're an early exit or they surprise you and make a deep run. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of a mystery team for me in that bracket for sure.
Yep.
Swing back up to the top of the overall bracket here. Look at the West region where Arizona, of course, got the number 1 seed. Here's my shocker, probably of the top seeds for me, and because I just have not followed them that closely, or really the Big Ten. But Purdue getting a number 2 seed was a little bit shocking to me. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is one of those things where the Big Ten tournament ended about 30 minutes before the selection show. And so I needed to kind of send this to you early and didn't really get a lot of time to ponder it. Plus, I was just screaming at the local CBS affiliate for continuing to break in on weather when I'm trying to watch the Big Ten championship and the selection show. I'm like, there's only so many ways you can say take shelter. We get it. Anyway, I digress. But that number 2 spot was going to go to a Big Ten team. The question was it going to be Michigan State or Illinois early on? And then they both bow out early in the Big Ten tournament. And so Purdue, when Purdue got a win over, it was Nebraska. When Purdue got a win over Nebraska to move into the semifinals, you look and they're like, okay, Purdue is a pretty solid 3 right now. Well, then they beat UCLA and now they're in the finals against Michigan. If you're a solid 3 and you go and beat Michigan on a neutral court, there's a door where you can be the 2. And the fact that Michigan State and Illinois both bowed out early in the conference tournament, I think did pave the way. It was going to be one of those 3 teams. I don't know that it necessarily mattered, but no, I don't think a little bit of a surprise that it was Purdue, but not a shocker. They earned it by winning 4 games in 4 days against the competition they beat to get there.
Yeah, and again, I said at the top that there wasn't a whole lot of movement and pretty much everything had been decided. That was an instance where they literally played themselves into a 2 seed.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying I agree. I didn't know if you wanted to break down the rest of that bracket. Or
yes, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was going to lead you into and point out your Hogs there. A little bit of controversy with their seating and placement here. What are your kind of overall thoughts on all of that?
I had them as a 4. A little bummed we're going to Portland when Oklahoma City was sitting out there. That would have been an ideal one. But, Coach Cal immediately comes on social media, talks about how much he loves Portland and can't wait to get out there. So, you know what? Our coach is happy. He's embracing it. So I'm good with it. I look at this region and arguably the 2 best point guards in the country are in this region, with Braden Smith of Purdue, who, by the way, in the 4 games in the Big Ten tournament had 46 assists in 4 games. And then Darius Acuff of Arkansas, who I think, only quote unquote had like 25 assists, but also averaged 30 points a game in the SEC tournament. So that'll be curious. But I will tell you right now, my son and I are watching this selection show on the March Madness app because we had to go that route. And Wisconsin showed up as a 5. And, Wisconsin's a team that's beat Illinois twice. They beat Michigan, nearly beat them again in the Big Ten tournament. I think they beat Purdue. I mean, they've been giant killers all year. And he and I looked at each other and we were like, uh-oh, is this, and sure enough, here we are, the 4. Of course, you got to get by Hawaii first. And Hawaii, watched them a little bit this weekend. They've got some strengths to that team, but that Arkansas-Wisconsin matchup, I mean, that's the caliber of a matchup that could be like Elite 8, and it's in the second round. I look down here and I'm telling you, man, that this is, AJ Debansa and Darius Acuff in the same bracket is pretty crazy to me. It's wild. BYU will get potentially your Longhorns, who are in that first 4 matchup tomorrow night against North Carolina State. So we'll and a really intriguing potential second round matchup of BYU and Gonzaga. They used to be conference rivals in the West Coast Conference until BYU jumped to the Big 12. So a really intriguing potential matchup there. But yeah, this is, as far as talent goes, and of course Arizona, it goes without saying, if you didn't watch the Big 12 tournament, if you didn't see their semifinal game against Iowa State, which was absolute cinema, Iowa State hitting a 3 to tie it, Bradley, the Big 12 Player of the Year. I apologize, man. I said it should have been DeBance. I still kind of think it should have, but that dude showed out in the Big 12 tournament. This is a loaded region as far as individual talent goes. I'm telling you right now, I could see, I would say, no slam on Gonzaga, but the Arkansas-Wisconsin winner, if it ends up being that, Wisconsin's got a tough one with High Point. High Point was in the tournament last year. They're a seasoned team. The Arkansas-Wisconsin winner will be a challenge to Arizona if that matchup occurs. 1, because of Acuff for Arkansas, or 2, because Wisconsin's going to look at Arizona and say, so what? We beat Michigan. We beat Illinois. We beat all these teams. And then the potential for Debansa to make a run. Purdue scares me. I'm going to tell you right now, they're hot, and they've got 3 dudes who have been together for like 3 or 4 years that know each other. Purdue is to me the scary team in this region, even though Arizona is elite. It like I've told you, I don't think all 4 number ones are going to make it. This is another stacked region.
Yeah, Mike, you did mention Texas and North Carolina State playing in one of the first 4 matchups on Tuesday night. Look, this is a rematch of a game played earlier in which Texas won out in Hawaii, Hawaii tournament early in the season. It was a very it was 3 or 4 point game, something like that.
Yeah,
probably the biggest win at that point of the season for Texas, obviously. I don't have a whole lot of hope in this rematch, to be honest. The Horns just are not playing well, and there's almost like there's been a finality to this season for them here. It's just almost like they've run out of gas, and they got just about everything they could out of this club. So I'm gonna kind of poo-poo it here a little bit and say my Horns are not going to win that game. But if they do, I for sure don't put a whole lot of stock in them being able to beat AJ Debansa and BYU. I mean, that's where I'm at right now. I don't have the confidence that you have probably in Arkansas to make a run here for sure. But anyway, that's where they would land. And yeah, the whole Arkansas thing. And look, Cal handled it right, as opposed to a couple of the other coaches we've already mentioned about handling things right. That just kind of shows his experience and leadership in these situations. And as much as a Hall of Fame coach, it can be underrated. I would say he's probably been a little bit underrated because of the high-profile programs he's coached at. But what a job he's done at Arkansas, man! In just year 2 winning the SEC tournament. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel good. Very impressive run. They called a little break by not having to play Florida, right?
No doubt.
But sometimes you have to get a little bit lucky to win those things.
And so, didn't have to play Alabama either because Ole Miss got hot. Chris Beard just
I was
scared the heck out of all bubble teams for a while there.
Yeah, we were both sweating that for a while with your Hogs, right? I mean, all of this, we'd be talking about something completely different if that game Saturday or Friday hadn't gone the way it had. So, Saturday, right? It was a semifinal.
Yeah.
Anyway, good job there on the West bracket. Let's close it out here with the Midwest. Of course, Michigan, no surprise, as the number 1 seed, even though they did lose in their conference tournament final. That's probably, I don't know, that kind of has the feel to me of being one of those good losses for a team that heading into the NCAAs kind of regroup and refocus, and that's something you really don't want Michigan doing if you're an opponent. But they did grab, of course, the number 1 seed with their number 2 seed coming, Iowa State Cyclones in the Midwest there. Give us your thoughts on that overall bracket.
Yeah, Michigan, I agree with you on that, because if you follow them in the Big Ten tournament, they nail biter win over Ohio State, nail biter win over Wisconsin, and it just felt like a loss was coming. And you'd much rather it happen there than later on. So I could see that. Iowa State, this was a team that there started to be some question marks about, I think. Late in the year, at home, Texas Tech just whooped them on their home court. And that was after Texas Tech had lost Toppin. And Iowa State really found themselves a little bit in the Big 12 tournament. It started with an easier win, a game they should have won. But they played an Arizona State team and beat them in the largest margin of victory in Big 12 tournament history, 91-42. They then play Texas Tech in a rematch and fall behind, David, by like 15 points early, and then come back to win that one by 20-something points. And then they play that epic game with Arizona that really could have gone either way. It just came down to a buzzer beater. But there is something, and I can't put my finger on it. You know how there are those teams, let's talk NFL. The Bills are going to find a way to kind of flame out, right? They're good, but they're going to find a way to it's just not going to happen. Iowa State, sometimes it's injury. Sometimes it's just the matchups doesn't work in their favor. They've had a lot of good teams that they don't make the Final Four. They just don't. And I'm not casting that in a light of what's wrong with them or whatever. I'm just saying it just never comes together for them. Is this the year? I don't know. I'm just telling you right now, if you're picking Iowa State to go to the Final Four, you're picking against history. Last year was only the second time in history 4 number 1s have made the Final Four. So you were picking against history if you picked that. So I'm not saying don't pick them. I'm just saying for whatever reason, Iowa State has a bit of a struggle, but they're playing really well right now. The 3 seed is Virginia. Virginia was a late mover. At the last couple of days, I moved them up to a 3 just because I really studied their metrics. I thought they played a great game against Duke in the championship game, even though it didn't work out. So we'll see what happens to them. A couple things I want to talk about here. The 5-12 matchup is always ripe for upset, right? And not that we're going to get in the weeds with this, but I'm going to be honest with you. Vegas knows what they're doing when they set spreads. Vegas always knows what's going on. The 2 smallest favorites for 5 seeds are Wisconsin, who we just talked about in the last one. They are a 9.5-point favorite over High Point. And here in this region, Texas Tech is only a 7.5-point favorite over Akron. That pains me to say because, we have guns up in our family. My wife's a graduate of Texas Tech. Of course, I am thanking the Lord because every year it seems like we're due to meet up, Arkansas and Texas Tech in the bracket, and it can't happen this year until like the Final Four. So we'll all be happy if we meet up in the bracket this year. But Akron is a dangerous team. Akron is a very dangerous team. And so that 5-12 matchup, really, really interesting to me. The other thing I will say about this region is thank you, committee, for not setting a dangerous precedent by excluding Miami of Ohio from this tournament. I don't like that they're in the first 4. I don't like that they're having to play SMU in that game. I had them just out of that as a 10 seed. But hey, they got their shot, right? They got their shot. They can beat SMU on, I believe it's Wednesday night, and then they get to play Tennessee. But I do want to say thank you, committee, that we don't set a dangerous precedent by putting a team that lost 1 game all year, sending them packing to the NIT.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was going to mention that here. It's kind of, I really never paid attention to it. I don't know if this has been, the way we've done it in the past. It's kind of odd to me that you have 2 play-in games in 1 regional rather than having, 1 for each.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd to me why we would set that up that way. I would like an explanation from someone as to why the East doesn't have a play-in game. Because let's be honest, I mean, you've got two of these who are, of course, 16 seeds, and it is what it is. I mean, it'll be a 1 against the 16, but these 11 seeds that Tennessee, let's just for instance, Tennessee is facing having to get ready for Howard or I'm sorry, for either SMU or Miami of Ohio.
Yeah.
Those are teams that, I mean, let's just say, I mean, they're going to be competitive. And now you have to wait until, before you can really lock in and play those teams. Now, I do know that they get an extra day to do that. They're playing on Friday, but still, I mean, that seems a little bit unfair to me, to those 6 seeds to have to wait on those 11 seeds. I don't know why we don't have play-in games for them all to be 16 seeds, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But
yeah. And I would either be in favor of, if we're not going to expand, and we've already addressed that on this podcast in a previous episode, but I would be in favor of, and I don't even like the 16 seeds being play-in at all, because UMBC and Howard, the loser is not going to feel like they've been in the tournament. We've covered this. I would be in favor of making every play-in an 11, because at least at this point, all the 6 seeds are on an even keel. They're all
right.
waiting to see who they're going to play. So that would be helpful. Also, Texas and North Carolina State's going to feel like a tournament game. Prairie View A&M and Lehigh is not. So if you're not going to expand, let's make all of these 11 seeds a matchup of the last 8 to get in. But we're nitpicking here. But yeah, it is a little weird. And I don't even know how they decide who, in my mind, the 4 16 seeds that are having to play on Tuesday and Wednesday, those are apparently the last 4, the bottom 4, right? Wouldn't one of them be playing Duke, who's the top number 1? But no, Duke is already, we know, playing Siena. So Siena wasn't one of the worst 4. Why do they have to play Duke? None of it really makes sense to me. It's just kind of, it just, I don't know. It feels like they just do stuff willy-nilly just to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's confusing to me why that's set up. I can't come up with a reasonable explanation in my own head as to why they set it up that way, other than somebody somewhere, as they typically do, overthinks it. And for some reason, we've targeted an 11 seed as being a play-in game.
Yeah.
And, we've got 2 of them being played in the same region. What I don't understand is why the East doesn't have a play-in game.
Yeah. Why couldn't we
just
put this? Why couldn't we have just put this UMBC Howard matchup up there with Duke?
So if somebody out there has the answer to that, when we post this on our Facebook page, give us the answer. We'd love to know that, because, we're a little bit stumped as to that. Good stuff there on the bracket. Again, everybody get your brackets filled out, all of that good stuff. We will have a special treat for you later this week as we go into Thursday's show. We're going to have a little bit of a special preview broadcast here. I'm gonna kind of just sit back and be the moderator in the room and let Matt and his oldest son, Andrew, who follows it probably just as much as you, if not more. And he's got a little bit younger bent to it. That's the good thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you guys kind of debate and talk about first round picks coming up to get you all set for the first round.
And I'll throw this caveat out there. He's coming in from school, so all this is contingent on he gets all his school stuff lined up and travel stuff lined up. But that is the plan right now, and looking forward to it, because we definitely different takes on it, but definitely equally knowledgeable about it for sure.
Looking forward to that as well. And so we're just praying for safe travels for Andrew, and that everything goes on schedule so we can get him here.
For sure.
That's the most important thing, right? We want to get him on the show.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to throw this graphic up, Matt, because I did spend Sunday night comparing your final back row bracketology with the actual NCAA bracket. And I want to give props again to my partner here, because he was close. He was close on a lot of these. Rarely more, if ever, more than a seed off on these teams. So So let's kind of go down the list here as I'm throwing it up, and I'm going to read this out, Matt, and we're going to go seed by seed here. But you got the top number ones all right. Duke,
Yeah.
Michigan, Arizona, and Florida were your number ones on your bracket. You did miss on Purdue and Michigan State, which you explained how that happened.
Yeah.
The rest of them you have nailed on your bracket with UConn, Iowa State, and Houston. Number 3 seeds, your back row, you had Illinois, Gonzaga, Purdue, Nebraska, the final one in the NCAA. Michigan State dropped to number 3. They had Virginia, which you had as a 4 seed. So, I mean, you missed that by 1, but Gonzaga and Illinois were right on the money.
But if you look at the actual bracket, when I filled out the bracket part, I believe in my bracket, Virginia was a 3. So it may have shifted off the S curve, but I'm looking at the bracket that I've got. Yeah, if you look at my Midwest bracket, I have Virginia as a 3 seed. You know, a lot of this happened so quickly, and there was so much. The S curve may not have. The brackets is what I predicted.
Yeah.
That is what.
And I did originally, so our listeners will know, I did originally consider putting these side by side and just and kind of going bracket by bracket, if you will.
Yeah.
It was confusing to me looking at it when I got done with it, and I said, there's got to be a better way to show this, and I'm not even sure this is the best way as far as the way I've got it. As we're recording this, Matt can't see what I'm looking at, so that's also kind of a disclaimer there. 4 seeds on the last back row bracketology, and I took these from your S curve. Let me also say that you had Vandy, Arkansas, Alabama, and Virginia. The actual NCAA bracket shows Kansas, Alabama, Arkansas, and Nebraska. 5 seeds, you had St. John's, Kansas, Texas Tech, and Wisconsin. And then the actual NCAA was St. John's, Texas Tech, Wisconsin, and Vandy. Again, just one off of any of those schools. 6 seed, back row had North Carolina, BYU, Louisville, and Tennessee. The actual bracket has Louisville, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. So again, 3 of the 4.
Not Wisconsin. Wisconsin was a 5 in the actual bracket.
Okay, who am I missing there on that one?
Now I hit all 4 of these. These were these for North Carolina, BYU, Louisville, and Tennessee were the 6.
There you go. Yeah, I retyped Wisconsin for some reason. Okay, so we got that one completely right on the 6 seeds, correct? Where we're at. Let's go to the 7 seeds. Back row has Kentucky, Miami of Florida, UCLA, and Utah State. The actual NCAA has UCLA, Kentucky, Miami, Florida, and St. Mary's.
So
okay,
one
you
off.
had St. Mary's at number 8, so you're one off.
Yeah.
But again, St. Mary's is not a household name, at least for me, and it's kind of odd to see them that high, but they were, of course, a 7 seed.
Yeah.
Back row, you had them as an 8 seed, so you were right on point there, along with Iowa, Villanova, and Clemson. The actual NCAA has Ohio State, Georgia, Villanova, and Clemson. 9 seeds, you had Ohio State, again, just one off there. TCU, St. Louis, and Georgia. The actual NCAA bracket has TCU, Utah State, St. Louis, and Iowa. So very close again on your 9 seeds. Again, as we go down this, you can just tell when you're able to look at it on your screen, just how close Matt was in his predictions on his S curve. Number 10, the 10 seed back row has Miami of Ohio, North Carolina State, Texas A&M, and UCF. On the actual NCAA bracket, he has UCF, Santa Clara, Missouri, and Texas A&M. You find out again he was pretty close because on back row he had Santa Clara and Missouri as 11 seeds. When actuality, of course, they are a 10 seed, so that's pretty close. Back row bracketology, he has Texas and SMU, and you look at that and you say, well, they didn't make that. No, they're actually playing in the first 4 to be able to be an 11 seed. So I'm giving you credit for that, brother. I'm just going to say that right now. You get credit for that. Actual NCAA includes South Florida and VCU, which you have as 12 seeds on your S curve. McNeese, Akron, South Florida, and VCU The 12 seeds in the actual NCAA bracket: Northern Iowa, Akron, High Point, and McNeese. You nailed McNeese there for sure. The Southland champ knocked SFA out of the tournament.
Yeah, they did.
Connection there. In the 13 seeds, the 4 seeds in back row were Northern Iowa, High Point, Hofstra, and California Baptist. The actual NCAA has California Baptist, Hofstra, Hawaii, and Troy. When you break down to the back row bracketology of 14 seeds, you find Hawaii and Troy there. So again, you were just one off on those schools. Wright State and North Dakota State in back row. That fills out the actual NCAA bracket, as they have North Dakota State and Wright State as 13 seeds, Kennesaw State and Penn, who Matt has as 15 seeds. And so again, just one off. Very close. I'm just telling you. And the S-curve part of that probably has something to do with it. But anyway, Idaho, Penn, Kennesaw State, and Tennessee State are 15 seeds in the back row bracketology. The actual NCAA was Furman, Tennessee State, Queens, and Idaho. And then finally, the 16 seeds in back row on the S-curve were Long Island, Queens, Furman, and Siena. Actual NCAA bracket was Siena and Long Island. And then you have the to be determines being, of course, Howard and UMBC, and Lehigh and Prairie View. So,
well, and one thing I want to talk about, and not that it's all that important because it's just fun, but this gets weird because if you look at the S-curve, there's actually 17 seats, which we don't have a 17 seat.
I didn't know how to actually incorporate that into what I was doing, so that's why you were not seeing those on your screen.
Just to kind of clarify, if you look at the S-curve, if you see all those 11 seeds right there that are on the 11 line, Santa Clara, Missouri, Texas, SMU, that was my projection as the last 4 in. So Texas and SMU were on there. Santa Clara and Missouri were actually up to 10s, excuse me, and North Carolina State and Miami of Ohio came down to that first 4. But since those 4 11 seeds actually only form 2 11 seeds because only 2 of them can win. When you go down from SMU, and remember, it's an S, it's a snake. So you see that it's VCU and South Florida are the next 2 teams on that 12 line. They're on the 12 line, but they're actually 11s because we need 2 more 11s. So I had them as 11s, which is what they were in the actual bracket, which means the last 2 on the 12 lines are 12s, but then you got to go down to the 13 line to get the next 2 12. So that's kind of how it works. So if you go and look at the actual bracket part that I put in there, not the S-curve, you'll see a lot of those numbers were actually probably dead on to what they were. It's just the S-curve kind of throws it off for the way it is when you have to combine those teams in the play-in games.
And we got started with this whole thing with, of course, just give you all a little insight. Of course, Matt has been doing this for a while with his own bracketology. And we started doing that, introducing, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago.
About a month ago, yeah.
And so we got away from the Lunardi bracketology and started doing our own here with Matt. And so I just wanted to ask that question with everything that we have here. And again, we're looking at something completely different on our screen. How happy were you? How close were you in terms of how this has worked before for you, right? I mean, was this a good year? Was it a average year?
This was probably the best I've done, but I want to put a caveat on that because, like I said, it was pretty predictable. There wasn't a lot of when you got into the bubble, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit on my back page. There just wasn't a lot of debate. I've gone back and looked at it. I had one team that I was more than 1 seed off of, and that's Utah State. And I was debating St. Mary's as a 7, Utah State as an 8, or vice versa. I went with Utah State as a 7 because they won both their conference and their conference tournament in a tougher conference. And I went with St. Mary's as an 8. Well, St. Mary's ended up being a 7. Utah State was kind of surprised to me that they fell to a 9. I was a little surprised by that. So I had Utah State a 7. They were a 9. Every other one of the 67 teams, I was within 1 seed of what they were. Some of them, of course, exactly what they were. So, I felt pretty good about that. I'm looking at it just right off the top of my head, and I think I had, let's see, of the top 16 seeds, I had 13 of them seeded correctly. Of the 5 seeds, I had another, let's see, I had 3 out of 4 there. I had all the 6 seeds. So in the top 6 seeds in the tournament, like the top 24, all the 1 through 6 seeds, I think I hit 20 of the 24, exactly what they were seeded. So, I mean, hey, I'll take it. Like I said, I don't think it was as hard this year as it has been in the past, but still, I'll take it. I was pretty pleased.
I was impressed. I'll tell you, we know you're a pastor, but I also think you might be a little bit of a prophet. You got this pretty close, man. I'm just telling you. So a lot closer than I've ever been able to do it, for real. So, and again, with all of that being known, you're going to listen to Matt and Andrew's predictions, hopefully here coming up on Thursday morning. We're going to drop that. Hopefully, if everything works out, we're going to drop that podcast on Thursday morning. I know typically it's later in the day when you get your podcast, if you're subscribed, which you should, we hope, to the Right Team podcast. But anyway, we're going to drop that before the actual games begin on Thursday. So you'll have all of that good stuff to do for some last minute filling in of your brackets and changing and that kind of thing. So I can't wait for that to come up this Thursday. Okay. Again, we did mention at the top here, good stuff, Matt, on the men's side. Great job, buddy. Appreciate you doing all that work.
Yep.
On the women's bracket, again, we're not going, because of time, we're not going to really break that down. We're going to look at that a little bit more in detail tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast. So be sure to tune into that. Not a whole lot of surprises, I will say, at the top of that. Again, very top heavy on the women's side with UConn, UCLA, Texas, and South Carolina getting those top seeds. But they have their tournament set up a little bit differently than the men's. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. So make sure you download and check out the podcast tomorrow for that. Okay, let's move on to Moneyball here, which this portion of the broadcast, I was about to say, Matt, podcast is brought to you by Styles Electric. Proudly serving East Texas from offices in Longview and Mount Pleasant, Styles Electric has delivered reliable, professional electrical services for more than 25 years. From school districts and universities to civic organizations and commercial projects across the region, Styles is proud to power the projects that help East Texas grow and thrive. When quality, workmanship, and trusted experience matter, choose Styles Electric, service that speaks for itself. I didn't want to mention here, again, this is going to be a very short Moneyball this morning, but I didn't want to mention and talk about the World Baseball Classic, which has reached its semifinal stage, and the game in particular. I don't know if you got to see it with all the basketball and church stuff going on yesterday and last night, Matt, but man, what a game last night between the Dominican Republic and the United States. And I've been saying this, to be honest, this is really of all the World Baseball Classics that I can remember, this is the one that I've watched the most. And so I want to put that little caveat out there. I don't want to act like I'm a super fan of the WBC. But this has been intriguing to me, again, because it's almost like you can see an end and you don't want it to end. And I'm afraid baseball's headed for a gigantic, long work stoppage by this time next year. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's kind of the storm clouds that are gathering there as well. But what a game last night. Did you get to see any of it, particularly the ending?
Watched almost all of it. It was kind of a nice little, sometimes you need to cleanse your palate, right? You've eaten too much of one thing, and it was a nice little basketball cleanse. My younger son, CJ, was really wanting to watch it, so we got home from small group. It was about the bottom of the first inning when we got home from Bible study and watched almost all of the game. It's electric, and I will be the first to admit I don't watch a lot of World Baseball Classic, and I did not come into this one anticipating watching very much of it, but was really locked in on the game with Canada. This was the one I've watched the most of, but I mean, of course, playing the Dominican was in Miami. Is that right?
Yeah. Depot Park, which is our backdrop today
it felt like at times a home game for the Dominican, which was kind of crazy. but just a wonderful atmosphere. Baseball, this is what I'll say about baseball is, and you and I know this about football, that kind of atmosphere every Saturday in the SEC at a home stadium, you get that, right? So that's what makes football so great. You don't get that, and you can't get that at every single baseball game. But when you do get it at a baseball game, it's as good or better than anything. And that's what it was last night.
I agree. And I did want to mention, and you brought it up, the home field advantage that, and I don't want to say foreign countries because they're not. I mean, they're our neighbors, Dominican and Mexico, right? It was a home game for Mexico last week in Houston. And it was a probably, I don't know, John Smoltz said 60-40. It sounded 70-30.
Yeah.
In favor of the Dominican last night. And that struck me as, I think we do, here in the United States, we do get kind of oversaturated with baseball sometimes, particularly because the season is so long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of baseball fans that I know that haven't turned into baseball mode yet because it's just spring training. And that's okay. I mean, some years I'm one of those. But again, this year I'm ready for it to start. I'm ready to enjoy it because, again, don't know what the future holds. And so that's why it was so disappointing to me last week when, we had the controversy with the Italy game and the things that came out of that. It just kind of seemed like, our Team USA wasn't taking this as serious as some of these other teams. And that's another thing. It's like, 50 years ago, there would have been no question that this tournament couldn't have been played because it would have been a runaway for the U.S. But baseball has truly become a world sport, and so much so that you've got Japan as the overwhelming favorite every year when this thing happens. They've passed us in terms of these kinds of things, and it's so hard to get the American players in the major leagues to play in this thing. Again, because of the injury risk, particularly of pitchers, and it takes you away from your team in spring training. And I kind of get all of that, but it doesn't do it every year. And it is an honor when you put on that USA uniform and go play. And I'm not saying that because I do understand the business side of it. It just seems to be more of a business side with American players than it does anyone else. But again, and I've kind of likened it to World Cup. It kind of had a World Cup feel again last night, and it completely was that game turned out to be something that it wasn't intended to, or wasn't expected to be. Right? It was a pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
It was a pitcher's duel. I mean, we had no runs scored after the fourth inning.
Yep.
I think Team USA had one hit in the final 6 innings or something like that. But and of course, let's just talk about the elephant in the room and about the final strike call. That was not a strike.
Yeah.
I agree. It was not a strike. But, and I just kind of go back to this and I oversimplify it sometimes because I'm full confession here. If it had been my team, I would still be upset about it today.
Yes. Yeah.
But here's the deal. And I think you agree with me on this. And this is pretty much any sport. Okay. There have been there are occasionally times where you can legitimately point a finger at an official and say, you cost us that ball game.
Yeah.
But they're very rare.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because, you go back in that, did it come down to that strike? Yes, it did. Ultimately, that's the thing everybody sees. But, the Dominican had a runner thrown out at third, Aaron Judge.
Yeah. What a throw.
What a rocket. And did you see the little, I kind of cringed just because of what's happened in the NBA. But they did catch Judge pointing the little gun toward third. If that had been the NBA, we'd be talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
But it's not. But so I noticed that. But that happened. And I don't know why you don't send that runner on that base hit to center field. Well, maybe you don't send him because he's the catcher running, which kind of weird to have have a player named Austin Wells on the Dominican team. I
Yeah,
noticed
that feels odd. That feels really odd.
The well-known catcher of the Dominican Republic, Austin Wells.
Right.
But so they held him up, and probably, I don't know. I'm sending him down by one with one out. I'm sending the guy. But anyway, you got runners at second, third, and one out. What does David Bednar do? He comes in, exactly does what he did the previous game when he, gets out of a jam and leaves them stranded. Tatis didn't take an extra base after he got thrown out. He kind of,
that was why he didn't take that extra base.
Bit.
Yeah.
And so they had their chances in the earlier innings. And I always just go back to this. If you leave it to a point in a game where an official can be human and make a bad call, is that on the official or is that on you?
Yeah.
And so, look, I get it. It was not a strike, but it went the U.S.'s way, and I'm glad as an American that it did, and we get to play for the championship tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that strike a little bit because I'm a big proponent of either go to the automated strike zone or take it off my screen. We've talked about this before. I one or the other. And yep, I'm glad that the team I'm rooting for came on the good side of this. But I want to say just a couple things about this. First of all, Mason Miller's ball, the amount of drop and the amount of break that he has on a pitch, I would cringe if I was an umpire having to figure out how to make the proper call there. Secondly, if that K zone is not up on my screen in that moment, okay, if it had not been up on my screen, I'm gonna be honest with you, I might have thought that was a strike. Where the dot appeared, I don't think did justice to how close that pitch actually was. I feel like the dot looked like it was practically in the dirt. That pitch was not practically in the dirt. That ball was dropping hard. And so, again, it sounds like probably like I'm making excuses like it was okay. I do think it was probably a ball. But I think if that K zone's not on there, you and I are looking at that thinking, what do you think? I don't know. It's close, but I don't know how you take that with 2 strikes. That's kind of how I am on it.
And I agree with you 100%. I had that on my notes as well. And from being around baseball in a lot of different capacities, in that situation, you're always taught, if it's close, you got to swing.
Yeah.
And if you think it's a ball, you have to swing at that pitch. You have to make an effort to foul it off. Even if you think it's a little low, which it probably did look low to Perdomo, who was the hitter in that situation.
Right.
And you mentioned Mason Miller, and for the life of me, of course, I understand why folks don't know who Mason Miller is because he's played with the Athletics the majority of his career. Excuse me. I don't understand, first of all, why that guy gets traded last year.
Yeah.
San Diego. If I'm Las Vegas or the Sacramento A's, whatever they are now, there's no way I'm hanging on to that kid.
Yeah.
No one has an arm. Those kinds of arms that kid can do. I mean, effortlessly hits 102.
Yeah.
And he was off
wild.
last night on his breaking stuff.
Yeah.
But that slider that he threw, it was a little bit low and out of the strike zone. But I agree with you. Had that box not been up there, everyone now would be saying, that was at the bottom of the zone.
Yep. Completely.
And you can't, as a hitter, it was close enough to where you can't afford to take that. And again, you leave it in the umpire's hands when you do that. But again, the guys that they're throwing, triple digits at you, and he dropped a slider at your knees. I mean, it's difficult to pull the trigger on that pitch. It really is. And so, I think that'll fade away. I haven't heard a lot, particularly with Albert Pujols. He didn't really complain a whole lot about the pitch at the end because Albert's played baseball and he understands the chance they had earlier in the game and it didn't go their way. So, again, proud of the Team USA getting another shot at this thing. The Japanese are not standing their way. Man, what a game that was Saturday. If you watch that, but they just got, Venezuela took that game from them. I mean, they were down 5-2 and it scored, 7 unanswered runs, I think. And so That's going to be a tough out. And then you got these Italians playing again. They play their semifinal tonight against Venezuela. You don't really know what you're getting from them. They're kind of the upstart in the whole deal. I'm telling you, if you're Team USA, you're going to be throwing McLean again, who got rocked by the Italians in the previous game, and then it's either that or Venezuela, who again, it will be a home game for them. It will be a home game for the Venezuelans. So a lot of good baseball here taking place over the next couple of nights. If you haven't been watching the World Baseball Classic, if you can't find it on your TV, it's on FS1 or it's on Fox. Just do that. People are like, I've seen some people say, well, I can't find it. I'm like, it's on FS1. That's what last night game was. So it's not on ESPN. ESPN doesn't carry baseball anymore. So,
and I'll tell you, I'm planning on tuning in to Venezuela and Italy for at least some of it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to watch that one. That's going to be I just love the crowd, man. It's just like, it's good to see that kind of, and you mentioned it. It's so good to see that kind of excitement about our, recognized national pastime. But I'm so desperate to see it from another country. It's good for baseball. It really is. And then, man, we're just a week or a little bit over a week away from opening day, and I mean, it's baseball is in the air, and I'm here for it. I'm just here to tell you, I'm here for it. Baseball and NCAA tournament. It's best time of the year. So that's our Moneyball segment. Again, thank you to Styles Electric for supporting the podcast and sponsoring that for us today. Today's back page is brought to you by Right Team Services. From professional writing and editing to website content, social media, and grant writing, Right Team Services works with schools, businesses, and nonprofits to communicate their message clearly and effectively. If you need words that work for you, trust Right Team Services to help you find your voice. Learn more today at rightteamservices.net about how we can help you tell your story. You mentioned a little bit of your back page, Matt. Tell us what you've got for us today.
Well, I'm going to stick with basketball because it's just, why not? Okay, so I told you there wasn't a whole lot of controversy, right? As far as who was made it and who was left out, it was kind of predictable. But one of the ones left out was Auburn. Okay, Auburn went 17-16. They went 8-12 in the SEC, counting the SEC tournament. They had a tremendously tough schedule. They had some huge quality wins, including beating Arkansas and beating Florida. And I'm just going to throw a couple things out because, and I want you to know this. So, a lot of these bracketology, there are people that do it better than Lenardi. Lenardi just was the first. He was the pioneer. He does an excellent job. But I think there are people that do it better than Lenardi. I follow some of them on social media. They get deep in the weeds with metrics and things like this. Auburn's the first team ever to miss the field with every metric that they analyze at better than ranked number 46. First time that a team has had every metric ranked better than number 46. And I'm talking about, they go into offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. I'm not going to get into all this, but of all the metrics that these bracketology guys look at, Auburn's the first team ever to miss with a metric as high as 46 or better in every category. They're the first power conference school to ever miss the field that had a resume average of what they had, better than number 45 in the nation. First team ever to miss the field with a resume average of better than 50 and a true road win over a number 1 seed, because when they beat Florida, it was on the road. There were, three. Not only did they beat Florida and Arkansas, they also beat St. John's, the Big East champ and tournament champ, on a neutral court. Okay, Auburn kind of broke the mold a little bit, but at the end of the day, Auburn was 17-16, and no one was really shocked that they were left out of the field. Okay. But that's not that was lost on CBS, who for some reason had Bruce Pearl as one of their commentators. Bruce Pearl, who just coached at Auburn and whose son is coaching at Auburn, and who is shamelessly ripping apart the resumes of SMU and Miami of Ohio and all the rest. Look, you can't do this, CBS. You cannot bring on a guy whose son is coaching one of the bubble teams and expect any sort of unbiased opinions to come from him. And it was funny because you had on Saturday a team like UMBC, who qualified. And I don't know if you saw this, their UMBC Athletics Twitter handle posted, the best part about the auto bid is we don't need a relative getting on CBS pushing for us to make the tournament. Like, people are ripping CBS and Bruce Pearl for this. Like, look, you can't. I know Bruce Pearl is an informed. He's a great coach. He's made Final Fours with Auburn. He's had a great run at Tennessee and Wisconsin, Milwaukee. But like, read the room, CBS. I just think it looks really unprofessional to have a bubble team who's got their dad on their stumping form on CBS. I didn't like it. I thought it was hilarious that Auburn didn't make it and Bruce Pearl's left there looking like kind of a whiny baby. I feel like if I'm his son, I'm like, hey, Dad, maybe chill a little bit, maybe back off of this a little bit. But I thought it was embarrassing to have look, we're not in high school, right? The dad of a coach is on here stumping for his kid's team to make it. I didn't like the look of it at all.
Do you think part of that was because he did take them to the Final Four last year, right? A little bit of his legacy is gone within about a year or so because of the season they had this year. And his son was sitting in the seat. I mean, he had so many different you have to be more professional than that. And I'm just going to tell you, several years ago, I quit watching pregame shows and analyst type shows for that. Other than College Game Day, which I'll watch occasionally, depending on where they're from, right, and the games that are coming up in the fall. But I don't watch, college basketball studio shows or NFL studio shows because I feel like I'm just as good as Terry Bradshaw behind a mic, maybe, but I'm not Terry Bradshaw, obviously, right? Just don't tell me a whole lot about what I'm needing from a game. And so several years ago, I was just like, I got better things to do with my time getting ready for a ball game or a tournament or whatever than listen to these guys just rattle on about stuff. But when you have somebody on like that, you've probably crossed the line. I agree with you on that. He either needs to cease and desist or get off the set.
I mean, let's put it in terms that is kind of in your wheelhouse. Let's just say next year there's a decent chance that Arch Manning gets invited to New York, right? For the Heisman. So we're doing a whole pre-show for the Heisman, and our guests are Archie Manning and Peyton and Eli. Like, come on, we can't do that. Like it is just silly to me.
I don't blame Bruce Pearl as a father. I don't blame Bruce Pearl as much as I do the network.
Yeah,
put him in that situation.
Exactly.
And unless you want the ratings that come with it, I guess. I mean, folks probably watched it just to see what he would say, and they got their wish. But I don't necessarily blame him for that. I think he went over the line, especially with his antics at the actual game. As though he were still coaching, but I agree with you on that 100%.
The only other thing I'll say on the back page, this isn't really back page, it's just breaking news that you've probably seen it as well. I don't know what the story is for the Chiefs as far as Mahomes and his injury, but Justin Fields just signed with the Chiefs. And so that literally just happened while we were on the podcast. So felt it was worth noting because I feel like Mahomes is probably out for a while. I was wondering what they were going to do at quarterback, and I don't know, maybe that's what they're doing, but we'll throw in a little
that name pretty late in the year. I mean, it would be a Herculean task for him to be back. I would say probably in September. I mean, who knows with ACLs now, but that doesn't really surprise me. That kind of sounds like one of those quarterback rehab things. You just go and you be a backup for a year and see what you can learn from Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, and then maybe try to resurrect your career from here on out. I did see that the Jets, before they released him, were saying they wanted to trade him, but it would cost a number 1 pick.
Yikes!
Yeah, good luck with that. But doesn't really surprise me that he's doing that. That's probably best for him in his career, to be honest.
Yeah, I would think so too.
On my back page, I did want to mention and give a shout out to my Texas baseball team, the Longhorns. They had a nice bounce back series. Man, I don't know if you saw what happened Friday night. That was a disaster.
Yeah.
Gave up a 4-run lead in the ninth and actually got beaten extra innings by Ole Miss for their first loss of the season. And you always wonder how your team is going to react. And they reacted about as strongly as you possibly could. Come back with a big win on Saturday and then just blew away Ole Miss yesterday to win that series. So the Horns come out of the weekend at 18-1 overall and hang on to that number 2 ranking as the rankings have come out. So I thought that was again, we'll kind of transition more into college baseball and softball here again with our on-campus portion of the show here as we get into later in the spring. Of course, we're kind of dominated by March Madness at the moment, but that was a big series win for Texas. A lot of really good baseball played in the SEC in particular. But did you see USC also took their first loss in the snow?
I did not see that it was in the snow, but I did see they took their first
Saturday.
loss.
They were playing a game literally in a blizzard conditions at Northwestern and got beat. That was their first loss of the year. So go look that video up on social media. It's wild.
I need to. Speaking of the baseball, did you see, well, 2 things. Number one, now 6 of the top 8 in the poll are SEC.
Yes.
Number 1 and number 3 are not, but the rest of them are. Another, and it's funny how things are in different sports. My least favorite SEC team in baseball is an Orange UT, but it's not yours. I don't know, the antics of Tennessee baseball, and a lot of it was following their coach, who I love. I think he's a great coach, but Vitello, who's now at the Giants. But I don't know if you saw yesterday, Georgia in the final game of the series robbed a home run to win that game in the 9th inning. It was going to be a go-ahead homer, and the Tennessee guy who hit it threw his bat down, stomped, bragging to the dugout because he thought he hit a homer, and then the homer gets robbed. I got to tell you, I laughed out loud at that for probably way more than I should have. Loved every minute of it.
Football equivalent of that is taunting the defender who's 10 yards behind you as you cross the goal line, and then you drop the football at the 1.
Yeah, exactly. Loved it. Thought it was great.
Yeah. Yes, I did see that. It was hilarious. So also wanted to mention here on the back page on the Right Team podcast, 9 of the 12 Texas high school boys basketball state champions. And Matt, we've talked about the difficulty of competing in rural districts here in East Texas, having to play these DFW area basketball teams in particular. But 9 of the 12 champions that were crowned this weekend at the boys were from the DFW area.
Yep.
DFW teams. The other 3 were West Texas teams. I saw a tweet from a DFW journalist. He said, why don't we just save ourselves some money, some gas money, and play this thing in Fort Worth? Hard to argue with him there. Rattle off these state champions for you: Turkey Valley, Jayton, Panhandle, and Lipan, which of course were the 2A teams that beat our East Texas teams in the finals. Then you go Dallas Madison, Paradise, Dallas Kimball, Dallas Carter, Frisco Heritage, Mansfield, Summit, North Crowley, Little Elm. Basically, all of the upper level UIL boys champions are from the Dallas area. Yeah. Wild to me. But you were right on point with that in your analysis earlier in the year of the challenges of playing by district and area rounds against those teams. They've just got a basketball wall over there in DFW right now. They really do. See that a little bit with the Houston area in football. Not as big, obviously, but yeah, those metro areas definitely have advantages that we don't see here in East Texas. And then the final thing, little note here I just saw that was interesting to me, the curse of being preseason number 1 in college baseball. Of course, we mentioned the struggles of Tennessee and some other teams that have, been primarily in the upper echelon of the polls here recently in college baseball. But the last 3 years, the preseason number 1 teams in their first 20 games are a combined 37-23. That includes 2024 Wake Forest, which started that year 14-6. 2025 Texas A&M, of course, last year the Aggies started out 10-10, and then you had LSU, of course, this year, which is now 13-7 through their first 20. So maybe the thing is to not wish to be preseason number 1.
LSU, who just dropped out of the D1 baseball poll, like
in just 2 weeks. It took them 2 weeks to fall from number 1 to out completely.
Quick
That's wild.
drop. Woo.
That might have been the quickest drop in the history of polls in every sport.
Mm-mm.
Just throwing that out there without researching it. But man, that is talk about a fall from grace, man. It happens. It happens, and it happened for LSU baseball. Okay, let's move on here quickly to the this date in sports section here. Kind of a light one today, but we just have a couple of birthdays to note that I think you will probably appreciate here, Matt. But in 1994, Joel Embiid was born on March the 16th. He turns 32 today. He was born in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The interesting thing about this, of course, happy birthday, Joel Embiid. As of yesterday, he has now played in a career 485 NBA games while also missing 485. He's a 50-50 player officially.
I was going to say, he was born on this day in whatever year, and 2 days later was put on IR. So that was what I was going to say. Yeah.
And that is wild because he's a really good basketball player. He's just never available. He makes a lot of money. He makes a lot of money to miss literally half of his NBA games that he's missed.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was born on this date in 1994, and then also on March the 16th of 1999, one Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who saw in last night's WBC semifinals, playing for the Dominican Republic. He turns 27 years old today. He was born in Montreal. I wonder why he was born in Montreal. Well, of course, if you remember at that time, his father, Bad Vlad, was tearing it up for the Montreal Expos.
His father is one of my favorites.
I love Vlad, especially that one year he had with Texas, man. It was magical. Went to the World Series that first year.
And I tell you, there was something about him. It didn't matter where the pitch was. He could hit it. I've seen him pick him off the dirt. I've seen him hit him up at his forehead. I mean, like the dude.
His strike zone was batter's box to batter's box.
Yeah. I just loved watching him play.
He could hit any pitch anywhere and did it with a smile on his face. I just love the guy. And I hated it when he was playing for the Angels against us, but anyway, we got him for that 1 year and went to the World Series. But anyway, little Vlad turns 27 today. So happy birthday to him. I know he's probably not enjoying it after last night, but then he looks at his bank account. He's fine.
There you go.
Final word of the day comes from Habakkuk 2:14. For you folks out there, there is a book in the Bible called Habakkuk. It's kind of hard to pronounce. But in chapter 2, verse 14, it says, "For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of God's glory as the water covers the sea." Thought for today: when the world feels uncertain, remember the bigger promise that God's glory is all around us and covers the earth. The story he's writing isn't finished yet. He's Matt. I'm David. This is From the Press Box on the Right Team podcast. I want to thank you all again for listening and supporting our show right here from the heart of East Texas and the Piney Woods. You can help us out by liking and subscribing our podcast wherever you find us, as well as our YouTube channel, which is called the Right Team Podcast. We're just getting started with content that has something for everyone, so make sure you don't miss an episode. Once again, a big thank you to our podcast sponsor, Styles Electric, East Texas Baptist University, and Right Team Services. We will be back tomorrow with some more college basketball, getting ready for the tournament, as well as some baseball, softball updates from around the area. Got a lot of stuff to cover on a busy Tuesday from the Press Box. But for today, have a great Monday. Join us again tomorrow on the Right Team Podcast. And until then, as always, Matt, keep writing your story.
This episode of the Right Team Podcast is also brought to you by Styles Electric. For over 25 years, Styles Electric has been providing reliable, professional electrical installation and repair service all throughout East Texas and beyond. We specialize in industrial and commercial projects of all sizes. We are proud to be a part of our communities and schools here in East Texas. Contact us today at 903-236-2536. That's Styles Electric, reliable, professional, and experienced.
The college you choose plays a defining role in what you believe, how you think, and who you become. With over 45 undergraduate programs and 14 graduate programs, East Texas Baptist University offers a transformational, Christ-centered educational experience that challenges students in mind, body, and spirit. 99% of students attending ETBU receive some form of financial aid, making opportunity accessible and affordable at ETBU. Join the Tiger family. It's not too late. Apply today at etbu.edu/apply.
Did you know that someone somewhere is talking about you? Yes, your school district, your business, your church, your nonprofit group is always the subject of a conversation somewhere. Maybe it's Facebook gossip, maybe it's talk around the water cooler, maybe it's written in a newspaper or a blog somewhere. At Right Team Services, we work with you to manage that conversation more effectively, to give all of your stakeholders an opportunity to hear your message. We help you create a culture of transparency in your organization that makes your customers and stakeholders feel comfortable as part of the story, and as a result, will help your business or school district become a more effective, trusted member of your community. Contact me today at rightteamservices@gmail.com to learn more about how Right Team can help you tell your story.